Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I'm going to be reviewing this, the MasterLiquid Pro 240. This is a brand new all-in-one water cooling system from Cooler Master, and when I say brand new, this product just dropped on the market today. Retail price wise, looking at £85 for the 120mm variant and £95 for the 240mm variant. But it's all good now in prices and being able to see the cooler. But what's special about it? What does it do? And what does it get to deserve that kind of higher end price tag and that Pro dubbing in the name scheme? So let's take a physical overview around the unit first. So as with any kind of CPU cooler, it starts with the radiator. You either have a 120 or 240mm radiator, and that's where the name originates from. If you have the 120, you have the 120mm radiator. If you have the 240, you have the 240mm radiator. So this is actually an aluminum radiator. It looks really good, or aluminium depending on where you're from. And the Cooler Master Make It Yours kind of logo on the side with the product name, it's actually a really nice feature. I think it just adds a bit of class, and in some cases you'll actually be able to show this off quite nicely. We've got clear-cut channels of folded fins to allow air to kind of glide more freely through. There's a more defined area in which they can travel through, and a lot of people disregard the radiator. It's actually one of the best ways to improve a CPU cooler, for example. You can have a better water block, you can have better tubing, you can have better fans, but ultimately it's the radiator that's dissipating the heat. But it isn't just the radiator that Cooler Master have gotten improved on this cooler. Every single element has kind of been redefined for this Pro line. Now this tubing is actually something you saw in my Neptune 120XL review. This is their FEP tubing, so they're carrying it down from that 120XL, and that was actually the first product of Cooler Master's to include that tubing. It's basically a lot thinner tubing than something you'd see on a competitor's more kind of cloth material kind of finished tubing. Obviously on the inside it is going to be rubber, but this thinner tubing, to some may look better, to some may look worse, but it does make running to tighter spaces and in smaller cases, mini ITX options, even with radiator support, it does make that a little bit easier. It's also completely kink free. Like, I couldn't get this to kink whatsoever, like at all. Tubing's actually quite important because if you've got your hot liquid going up to your radiator, it's fine if some of that heat dissipates in the tubing. But obviously, if you've got that nice cold water coming down into your pump and into your water block, you don't want any of that kind of cold air that you've trapped in to escape. You don't want that liquid to get warmer. You want it kind of keep the liquid in the whole loop as cool as possible at all times, because what's the point in having a really good radiator and then letting loads of the heat that you've just cooled down just escape as it goes through the tubes into the water block. But talking of the water block and the water pump, Cooler Master have done some very interesting things with this one, I must say. So looking at it physically, we've got a nice Cooler Master logo which is LED backlit. Now this is where my first kind of major gripe comes with the unit. It takes this Pro kind of name, if you will, which implying it's the best of the best. This is Cooler Master's master line of products, and to me, not being able to RGB LED this light is a bit of a bummer. I couldn't find anywhere in which you can turn it off. Obviously, if you unscrewed the unit, voided your warranty and removed the LED, you could turn it off. However, for me, I just think that if you are paying more premium price tags, we're talking £95, $120-ish, then you want to me, be able to customise that LED and the colour it shows, because the last thing you want, whilst blue is my preferred colour, the last thing that you want is to have a really nice flashy system with some really nice kind of like green accents, for example, and then have this great CPU call out with a blue LED accent. But it's just a small gripe, it's not going to be a deal breaker for most people. But enough of LEDs and kind of like aesthetic features and looks and that kind of thing. The actual water block and CPU pump itself is very special. Now this is a much thicker block than with any CPU cooler I've seen before. And this is because Cooler Master separate it into two chambers. Obviously that LED kind of room and amplifying that light kind of does take up a little bit of space. But what they're actually doing is they're actually separating kind of the components and the machinery inside the cooler that make it pump the fluid around the loop further away from the hotter CPU, because you have to remember these chips in some cases are getting up to 60, 70, even over 80 and 90 degrees Celsius, and obviously electronics and 90 degrees Celsius, which is like enough to completely frazzle you, they just aren't going to mix. So this is going to lead to better longevity of the unit, it's going to last longer, and all that is ultimately good. It's ultimately a very good thing. talking of longevity, this CPU cooler does have a fill port, so if in 3-4 years time you still have the CPU cooler, you thought, alright, some of the fluid might have evaporated or it might have got a bit dirty over time, I want to fill it with my own, you can do so. It will void your warranty, but there is an option there to do so, and that's a very respectable move. It's costing them a little bit more to manufacture, but ultimately it results in a better customer experience in the long run. Now, a lot of people overlook the actual once the coolant gets to the CPU. Now, the CPU isn't the same temperature on the whole of the die, on the whole of the chip. Look at 5820K, 6800K, very big chips, the X99 chips, AMD's FX 8000 series, very hot chips, and there's no point in cooling the whole part of the CPU evenly, because that's not where the heat's being generated. So Cooler Master uses fin design where they channel the liquid through these fins in order to kind of cool the bits of the CPU that need cooling the most. Now, it's all good talking about technicalities and that kind of thing, but how does it perform? So I pitched it against a Hyper 212 and a Neptune 120 XL, both slightly cheaper units than this. The Hyper 212 comes in at around £25. The Neptune 120 XL comes in at between 60 and 75. So it's good to see the kind of the performance increase you get as you step up from cooler to cooler. Now, I was incredibly impressed with this. These benchmarks are non-overclocked, but I did overclock my 6800K, which comes in stock clocked at 3.4 GHz with a turbo of 3.6. I managed to get it up to 4.2 with a turbo of 4.4, which was very respectable, whilst maintaining some very low temperatures. Now, Cooler Master's kind of approach of their new motto of "make it yours," which is actually on the t-shirt that you can't quite see because my camera's just not wide enough to fit it in frame, but the idea of having this master line is a very appealing one to me. I think I'm definitely one of the main target audiences for this cooler as well, doing a lot of editing and video compositing, rendering, and pushing my system to the max all the time. For anyone that's kind of a PC enthusiast, having a really nice CPU cooler aesthetically alone is a good enough reason to go and buy one of these. And a couple of other notable points before I wrap up this review, conclusion, all that kind of thing. It's very quiet. Cooler Master put an emphasis on making sure this thing was quiet, and I can tell you it is very quiet. They've got their new Master Air fans in this, which are incredible, really are. It's good to see that a company are including their higher end fan products in a radiator design like this. You go to a product like Corsair's very respectable 240mm H110i, for example, or H110i GTX, that actually includes just basically really crappy stock case fans. And to me, if you're going to have a pro line of products like Cooler Master have done here, then having high-end fans is great. They've got rubber grommets on the edges which isolate the noise and isolate vibrations, which paired with the rubber kind of grommet and sleeve, if you will, which goes around the edge of the fans, you are going to have no vibration issues at all, once again adding to the idea of this being quiet. The fans produce quite a nice static pressure whilst generating a good balance between performance and loudness, or audible volume, which is definitely a good thing for me. You can have all the performance in the world, but if your computer sounds like a rocket ship, you can go home. Sorry to break it to you. And that basically wraps it up. For the pump on the unit, we've got a 50,000 hour lifespan, which is great. This thing's going to last ages, which is what you want. And it kind of gets to the point now where, alright, just give me a few more thousand hours. It isn't really going to make that much of a difference, but it's good to see Cooler Master are telling you that and giving you that along with their guarantees, warranties, all that kind of stuff, and their customer support. So pros, cons, good bits, bad bits. This thing isn't cheap, but it performs very well. Price to performance wise, you're still going to do better off with a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, one of the greatest CPU coolers of all time. However, if you are an enthusiast, you want to overclock, you want to keep your system cool, and you have to remember, if you have an expensive CPU cooler, you're not only increasing the longevity and the appearance of your whole system as a whole, but you're actually increasing the lifespan of your CPU. You have to remember, if you've got a cheap CPU cooler and load goes up to 100%, CPU rockets up in temperature, hot, cold, then that's actually going to damage and reduce the lifespan of your CPU. This is going to sustain a nice temperature even when we hit higher loads. 100% load, it is going to kind of get a little bit warmer. However, you're still going to be getting some very respectable temperatures. Overall, any gripes about this? My only gripe would be the LED. And that would be like basically it. Apart from the fact that you could say it's quite expensive, because it is quite expensive, the LED for me should be customizable, or at least should be able to turn off. I love what they're doing with the 2-chamber design and a better pump design and channeling these liquids and using things from their other coolers that they've seen to be successful. But having a Pro cooler is not just about the best performance, you want reliability, and it's something that this CPU cooler definitely offers. What a mouthful that was. But yeah, overall it's a great CPU cooler. I'm not quite sure how their motto, "Make it yours," thanks for the t-shirt guys, quite portrays fully across into this unit, because I don't see how much customization there is with it. However, I can't argue with the Pro kind of naming scheme, because it is a Pro design, it performs like a Pro, and it gives you some great temperatures, even with some very healthy overclocks as well. But if you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like, rate, and I'll leave links to this for the UK and US in the description below. And that's basically it. I'll see you in the next GeekaWhat video.